Okay, we're going to speak about how to read people, but in a spiritual way. We all know how to read people in a non-spiritual way. If I would ask you, how do you read people, what would you say? How does it work? You want to read a person. You meet someone the very first time. What do?
Ask them questions.
Well, before... You are judgmental, yeah, exactly. Not be. Okay, but usually it takes you, do you know how long it takes to judge somebody the minute you meet them? How long does it take? 1 second. 1 second. And how do you judge a person? You're going into a business meeting, very first time you meet a person. You're coming into okay, looks is a big one. What else? Expressions, body language, attitude. In 1 second, there's an attitude. There's there's how far they stand from you, how close they stand to you. There's body language. You cross your arms, that's telling you something. You're looking at your watch every second, that's telling you something. So this is a way that we know to read people, but there is a spiritual way to read people too. And that's what we're going to speak about today. There is one time in the Torah that God tells us, Hashem says something is not good. Lo tov, it's not good. And that is lo tov heyos ha'adam levado. It is not good for a person to be by themselves. Loneliness is toxic. For a person to live by themselves in this world, it's toxic. You are not supposed to live by yourself. You're supposed to have friends. You're supposed to have relationships. You're supposed to have family. You're supposed to flourish in this world with people. To be spiritual doesn't mean that you go on top of a mountain, do yoga, and cut yourself off from the whole world. To be spiritual means that you're with people, and you know how to interact, and you know how to live, and you know how to love, and you know how to forgive. The problem is that often we interact with people, and in a second, like you said, we judge. We judge. Somebody's late to dinner. You judge. They obviously don't care about me. If not, they wouldn't be late. Somebody's working very hard and they don't make time for you. Well, they're selfish. Somebody in your house doesn't hang up their things, put away their shoes, leaves things out. Oh, they obviously want to just irritate me, because how many times do I have to ask them? Is that true? That's what we have to discover. Because if we judge people like that from the way that they act towards us, or the way we see them, or the way they looked, and it takes a second, that becomes an outlook. That outlook becomes a way that we treat the person. The next time that we're with them, we're carrying the baggage of what just happened before. Oh, he's selfish. She's so snobby. He's weird. That person's just out of control. I don't want to spend time with them. And that becomes a life. But if Hashem is telling us, lo tov heyos ha'adam levado, it's not good for people to be by themselves, then we have to learn how to see people with a spiritual eye. Because then we could live better. And if you live better, then you love better. So, what would that secret be? Amazingly enough, when we speak about clothing, when people are different, you judge them differently. But if everybody's all the same, then what happens? Everybody seems the same. The Klosenberger Rebbe, who was a Rebbe who lived through tremendous tragedy and went through Auschwitz and lost his wife and 11 children, this is what he said after the Holocaust. This is something so difficult to comprehend. And he said, there is one thing I miss about the Holocaust. When I went through the death march, we were all clean shaven. Our hair was shaved off too. We all marched side by side, and no one knew who was who. No one knew I was a Rebbe. We all just held our arms around one another and tried to keep warm and keep our fellows warm. That's what I miss, he said. That there was no judgment. Everybody was just one. We all looked the same. We all are going through the same thing. It shouldn't have to take a Holocaust, an October 7th, or pain in a family and suffering to bring people together to stop judging. We should know how to do that in our own lives. And we do that through using a spiritual eye. Not by judging somebody by clothing. Think about it. You meet somebody and you're not impressed. You meet them the next day and they're wearing a judge's robe. Oh, well, she's a judge. He's a judge. Now, right away, the person has a totally different standing in your eyes. You meet somebody and, okay. But then you see them in doctor's scrubs and they're a surgeon. Oh, wow, you know she's a surgeon? You know he's a surgeon? Oh, my gosh. And there's a different feeling. What changed? It's just the clothing. Just the clothing. I want us to figure out how to see beyond the clothing and into a neshama, into a soul. How not to get stuck into that judgment that you're missing half the people in your life, or you're judging them unfairly. How do you do that? Because things happen when you are with people. Somebody is late, somebody ticks you off, somebody walks by you, they don't answer you. Does that mean that they're a bad person? Does that mean that they're not interested in having a good life and a good relationship with you? And people get into terrible arguments over something like this. Or you meet someone for the first time and you just judge them as weird and not my type, when really maybe you're passing by a wonderful friendship or a wonderful business deal or something good in your life. So what would the spiritual way be? We go back into the Torah, because everything's in the Torah. Hafuchba, hafuchba, dukulaba. My mother would always say, turn the pages, everything's in the Torah. We go to Parshas Vayera, and we have two cities, Sodom and Amorah. They're known for their very evil ways. The cries were coming up to Shemaim, up to the heavens above, of injustice, of people suffering, of people hurting one another. And look what the Torah says. Vayomer Hashem, and God says, Za'akas Sodom va'Amorah ki rabba. The cries of these two cities, Sodom and Amorah, they're so great. V'chatasim ki kavda ma'od. And their sin is very, very heavy. Erdana, I'm going to go down, ve'erah, and I'm going to see. Haketza'akasa haba'a elai, asu kala ve'imlo eda. I'm going to see if these cries are really so terrible. Do they merit to be destroyed or not? So I'm going to go down and see. Now, what would the question be? God is going down from the heavens to see? God sees everything. Does God have to come down from the heavens to see? God knows everything. God sees everything. But God, Hashem, is giving us an understanding for life. No matter who you are, no matter who you're dealing with, get down from your high place, from your place of perfection, from your place of judgment. Come down, look, listen, see, hear, and then you can make a judgment. Even Sodom and Amorah, yeah, they were destroyed after. But Hashem did not take it for granted. The cries are coming up. Hashem is teaching us human beings. Don't cast people aside. Don't think that you're in this perfect place. Well, I would never have done that. I would never say that. I would never have acted that way. What a horrible person. What a temper. So we learn from our sages how not to judge a person in a second. How to come down from that place of perfection. In Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, it says, Havei done as Kol ha'adam l'kaf zechus. Judge the person with merit. But it says in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, Hashem's language, Kol ha'adam, the entire person. It doesn't just say judge every person with merit. Judge the entire person. What does that mean, the entire person? You have to be in that person's shoes. You have to be in that person's situation to understand what that person is going through. You have to be in that person's place. You're outside, you pass by your friend, somebody just walks you by, you say, hi, hi, and they just walk you by. Oh, wow, what a snob. What you didn't know is that she's just coming from the doctor and she just got some very difficult news. She can't say hello. The husband comes home, closes the door, he's quiet. Wife is like, oh my gosh, you can't come home better than that? What she doesn't know, it's a terrible day at the office. The market tanked, a deal that he was counting on just didn't go through. So he's having a very difficult time, doesn't want to come home and give you the bad news. The husband comes home, speaks to a wife, and the wife is not in a good mood. And she forgot to pick up the stuff from the cleaners. He had a suit, they have a wedding, and of course she forgot the suit. Wow, she's so selfish. Of course, if it would be my suit, she forgets. If it would be her suit, she wouldn't forget. She has all her things. What he doesn't know, she had a very difficult day. The juice spilled, the milk spilled all over the kitchen. The principal called from school. This kid's acting out. This one called that their ear is hurting. This one called that they don't have lunch. He didn't know what to do first. Of course she forgot to pick up from the cleaners. Not because she's a bad person. Not because he's a bad person. Kol ha'adam, you have to put yourself into the person's situation before you judge and say, he's so selfish. She's so self-absorbed. You have to know what it is that a person's going through. Did you put yourself in the person's situation before you judged? That's how you have a spiritual eye. That's how you see not just what is right in front of you, but you see the essence of a person. Kol ha'adam also means the entire person, that you don't judge a person in a moment. Maybe he's working very hard, and that's all you see. He's never home, but you see the part where he's working really hard and trying to provide for a family. Maybe you have a friend and she's always late. You're like, oh my gosh, she's always late. She's impossible. She doesn't respect my time. But do you see the loyalty that she has for you? What a loyal human being. What a loyal friend. Kol ha'adam, we can't just see the negative of a person. You have to see the entire picture, and you have to see the entire human being. There's no one who is only flawed. There's no one who is only negative. So does my eye take me to a place where I see the positive as well? Or do I just go to the negative, make a snap judgment, and we get into a thing? Look how many times that happens in life. And sometimes it happens just on the very first time that you meet somebody. Ethics of the Fathers, the first teaching from Sinai, from Moses from Sinai, gives it over to a student, to Yoshua to the next, to the Zekanim, to the elders, and then to Anshe Knesset Hagadola, which is 120 of the greatest minds of Israel, who gave over to us the Torah that was given from Sinai. What is the first teaching that we are given in Ethics of the Fathers?
To pass it on.
They passed it on, but this is a teaching for life that we are given that is the gateway to everything else. Do you know what it is? Hevei mitunim badim. Be very careful and deliberate before you judge. Why? Why would that be the first? There's so many teachings in Ethics of the Fathers. Who is rich? Who is wise? Who is strong? How to live your life. Why is it about judging? Because when you judge somebody in that 1 second in a negative way, you've just erected a wall. You've built a wall. And now you've lost the relationship with the person because you judge them. And the more you judge and the more you live like that, not being deliberate in your judgment, just doing these snap judgments, oh, he's driving me crazy, he's impossible, this kid is just crazy. When you speak like that in your mind, do you know what you're doing? You're pushing all the people in your life away from you. You can't be part of a community because everybody you think is crazy. You think you're better and smarter than everybody else. You can't be part of a family because everybody just irritates you and you think you know it better. And if you would have done it, you never would have done it like that. And so what happens? Such a human being is constantly erecting walls. Once you create and build this wall of judgment, it's very hard to take it down. Very difficult to take it down. So Torah is teaching us that in order to have a spiritual eye and create achdus, which means unity, it doesn't mean that you all have to look the same. be the same, have the same life circumstance, but it means that you have to work on developing the spiritual eye that you are given to see beyond the physical, to go into a person's essence. How many people do we miss? So we go into the Torah, into prophets. And there was a king, his name was Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, but he messed up. He messed up. And the kingship was taken away from him. God spoke to Shmuel Hanavi, to Samuel the prophet. I always like to go into Tanakh, into the Torah, to see exactly what we're talking about. We don't have to go to this self-help book and that self-help book. We have the Torah. Here we go. Vayomer Hashem al Shmuel, and God said to Samuel the prophet, Ad Mosiah tamis Abel al Shaul, stop mourning for Saul. Shaul, he will not be king anymore because he did not listen to the word of Hashem. We're going to have to find a new king. V'ani astiv mimloch al Yisrael, and I have rejected him from being the king of the Jewish people. Malek harnecha shemen v'lech, take your oil, fill your horn, because we're going to find a new king. I'm going to send you to Yishai, a man named Yishai, Beis Halachmi. He lives in Bethlehem, in Beis Lechem, which you can go to until today. Ki ra'isi bivanav li melech, because one of his sons, I see, is going to be the next king of the Jewish people. So Samuel Shmuel the prophet goes, Vayomer, and he says to God, Vayomer Shmuel, Echelech v'shema shal v'harigeni, and Saul's going to hear, he's going to kill me. God says, no, go. You're going to go and you're going to give a sacrifice in Beis Lechem. You're going to meet this family of Yishai, and you're going to invite him to come like to a nice Kiddush. And at the Kiddush, you're going to meet the next king of Israel. Now, if it was you, if it was me, how are you going to know who the next king of Israel is? How are you going to decide? How are you going to judge? What did he do? V'yikadesh es Yishai v'yesbana v'yikra lehem lezevach. So Samuel calls Yishai and his 7 sons, and he calls them to come. Vayihi bevoam, and when they come, Vayar es Eliav, he sees the first son, and his name is Eliav. Vayomer, ach neged Hashem ishichel. Ah, this must be him. This guy, Eliav, is tall, handsome, popular, charismatic. He opens his mouth. Everybody's listening. This must be. I mean, for sure, Hashem would choose such a person to be the king. Vayomer Hashem el Shmuel. And God said to Shmuel, to Samuel, listen carefully, because it wasn't just this son, it was one son after another after another. Al tabeit el marehu. Don't look at the way he looks. Ve'el gova komaso. And don't look at the height or stature of a human being. Ki me'astihu, because I have rejected this one. He is arrogant. And when you don't have midos and you don't have character, it doesn't matter what you look like. Who cares? He's tall, he's charismatic, he's good looking. What matters? Ki lo asher yireh ha'adam, ki ha'adam yireh le'einayim v'Hashem yireh le'levav. Because it's not what you see. Here's a teaching for life. Adam, man, looks with his eyes and sees just you with your eyes. But Hashem, God, Hashem sees into the heart. Hashem sees into an essence of a human being. That's what counts. To be able to see the soul of a human being. So he hears this, Vayikra Yishai el Avinadav, and Yishai the father calls to his next son, Avinadav, Vayaverehu lifnei Shmuel, and he brings him in front of Samuel, in front of Shmuel, Vayomer, Gam bazeh lo bachar Hashem. No, this one God didn't pick either. I'm so confused. Vayaver Yishai Shama, and Yishai then brings all his next son, Shama, Vayomer, Gam bazeh lo bachar Hashem. No, God didn't pick this one either. So confusing. Vayavar Yishai Shivas banav lifnei Shmuel. 1 son, 2 son, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each one more gorgeous, charismatic, personable than the next. And each one, Shmuel, Samuel the prophet says, oh my gosh, it's not this one, it's not this one, it's not this one. None of these are the future kings of Israel. And he says, well, these are my sons. Vayomer Shmuel el Yishai. So Samuel the prophet says to Yishai, Lo bachar Hashem ba'ela. I'm sorry, God did not pick any of these boys. Vayomer Shmuel Yishai. So now Shmuel says to Yishai, Heitamu hane'arim? Is this it? Are these all the young boys that you have? Vayomer od she'ar katan. There's one more little one. V'hinei roeh batzon. But he's a shepherd. There's this like little one. He's a shepherd. Vayomer Shmuel el Yishai shalcha. Send for him. V'kachani lo ki lo nosov ad bo po. Send for him, because we're not going to sit down until this little one comes here. What do you mean he's a little one? This boy was in his 20s. He was little, meaning he was little in the eyes of his father. His father belittled him. He's not like his brothers. He didn't even invite him to come. And Shmuel says, call him to come. Let him come over here. Vayishlach, and they sent for him. Vayiviehu, v'hu admoni. And they bring him in front of Shmuel, in front of Samuel, and he's a redhead. Im yefei einayim, and he had beautiful eyes. B'tov roai, and he was handsome. Vayomer Hashem, kum mishichehu, kizehu. And Hashem says, God says, get up, anoint him, because this is the one. Do you know who this child was? This was David, King David. Imagine that he was about to pass by in front of him King David, the writer of Tehillim, the writer of Psalms, King David who gave birth to Shlomo, to King Solomon, King David from whom Mashiach is going to come. He was ready to just write him off. Why? Katon, he's a little one. He's a little one, his father thought to himself. Why? Because many times in life, somebody is in front of you, and we make a judgment, and we call them little. And we don't realize we're not able to look past the clothing, the appearance, the body language. Whatever it is that we judge a person by, and we decide to build a wall and to say, this person is not for me in my life. We end up making a judgment because we do not have einayim yafot, which is what King David is described of. There he's just David. Einayim yafot, beautiful eyes. What does that mean to have beautiful eyes? What does that mean? How do you have beautiful eyes? Beautiful eyes means that you have spiritual eyes. They say eyes are the window of the soul. What does that mean, eyes are the windows of the soul? Years ago, I went to a Shiva call for somebody who I grew up with, who grew up in North Woodmere, where my father was the rabbi, and my mother the Rebbitzin. And at the Shiva, the woman who was sitting Shiva for her father said to me that under the chuppah, she will never forget the advice that my father gave. There she was, beautiful grand bride, thinking that life is just beautiful and perfect, and it always will be like that, but we all know that life is not perfect, though it can be, and it is beautiful, but things happen. And my father said, certain things might happen in your life, and you might lose touch, and you might lose contact, and you might think to yourself, who is this person sitting right in front of me? And when you think that, I want you to look into each other's eyes and say nothing, because eyes never change. Do you realize that eyes, when you look into somebody's eyes never change? If there's somebody that you love, sometimes it could be a bubby, a grandmother, a child, a good friend, a husband, a wife, and you feel like you need a little connection, this was my father's advice. Look for a few moments, even a few seconds, into eyes, And you're going to see something so beautiful, because eyes reflect the neshama, eyes reflect the soul, and eyes never age. Those beautiful eyes. So what are eyes? How do you create beautiful spiritual eyes that when you use your eyes, you can see something beyond what is in front of you? We say every day in our davening, V'ha'er einenu b'sorasecha, give light into our eyes through your Torah. You can actually create light within your eyes. There's only one part of the body, we've learned this before, that a piece of pepper can hurt, and that's your eyes. Put a piece of pepper on your fingers, on your head, on your foot. There's nothing that's going to happen. Take one little piece of schmutz, of dirt, and it goes into somebody's eyes and they're tearing and they can't see and they have to flush it out. Why did God create us like that? Why did Hashem create us like that? To know that your eyes, what you see with your eyes, what you put into your eyes, what you watch with your eyes, creates an impact on your neshama, on your soul. You see schmutz, you see something that you shouldn't be seeing, it impacts the soul. Look for good to see. And when you look for good to see, you live better because you see better. Seeing is not only the physical, but there's a spiritual way of seeing, and that's what I'd like us to discuss right now. There was a Rebbe, his name was Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. He lived from 1772 until 1810. He was a great Hasidic master, and he gave tremendous wisdom for life. This is what he said about eyes. The eyes are perhaps the most important of all the sense organs. Your eyes. Sight helps us see the wonder and beauty of God's creations, of Hashem's creations. How would you know how wondrous the world is if you didn't have eyes? Look around the world. You see beautiful flowers. You see stars in the sky. You see people that you love. You see mountains. You see snow falling. It's wondrous. You see a sunrise. You see a sunset. You see a baby smile at you for the first time. The eyes are the gateways to seeing so much beauty and wonder in this world. Lacking sight, we become disconnected. And when you're not able to see the people around you without a judgmental eye, you become disconnected. Spiritually seeing means that we look at things deeply and we discover their spiritual essence. To look at somebody spiritually, to have spiritual eyes, means that you have developed the ability to see beyond what is right in front of you. Do you imagine how incredible that is? How that opens up the whole world. Samuel Shmuel was able to see beyond because Hashem was guiding him. But if you're living in this world and you're seeing something, how do you do that? How do you train your eyes to see beyond what is right in front of you? He goes on to say that sometimes your vision can become distorted and we lose the ability to see the difference between right and wrong. So think about it. Somebody's talking to you, and slowly you're understanding what they're saying, and then what do you say? You say, oh, I see what you're saying. You don't say, I hear what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I see your point. That's a spiritual way of seeing something. You don't say, I hear, you say, I see. So what I want us to do is figure out how to be that person to develop that spiritual eye. And how do you do that? How do we use our eyes? Do we see the real essence of what we are looking at? Or do we judge things and people by their outer appearance? You have to get away from judging something that just happened in front of you, and you have to see the whole picture. Do I know what happened before this? Do I know where this person was coming from? Do I know what happened in this person's day? Do I know what challenge this person is going through right now? There's so much involved in a human being. How can I just judge in one person, look at a person and just write that person off? Or decide that this is who that person is? I don't know anything about them. I haven't stood in their shoes. I don't know their situation. I don't know what they're going through right now. I don't know what they went through. So to open your eyes means that you open your heart and you open your neshama and you open your soul. And as it says in Ethics of the Fathers, you have to have the whole person in front of you, not just what you see this second. So how can you do that? How do you think a person can do that? How can you train yourself? So Rabbi Nachman from Breslov tells us that it's very important to train your eye. This is like vision therapy, okay? But it's spiritual vision therapy. Sometimes somebody's trying to work on strengthening their vision, so they have vision therapy, right? And they give them all types of exercises. Many children have this to do at night. What it would be spiritual vision therapy? Spiritual vision therapy, what do you think?
To see the good in people.
To see the good?
And don't judge me because I was taking notes.
I don't judge you. To see also Hashem's hand in your life is vision therapy, spiritual vision therapy. To know, Rabbi Nachman says, that prosperity comes from above, and nobody should think that they are so great and so smart and so lucky that whatever they touch is gold. So it's all about me and become arrogant, because everything comes from above. And if I can see that, and I see God's hand in my life, do you know what he says? Once Hashem sees that you see his hand in your life, he will make himself apparent to you in your life with blessing. You want bracha? You want blessing? Don't ignore the hand of Hashem in your life. Sometimes somebody thinks, we have to get to this doctor. This doctor's going to heal, and we have to get an appointment right away with that doctor. Of course you have to find the good messenger. But they're only a messenger. Hashem is the doctor of all the doctors. Hashem is the healer of all the healers. And once you take Hashem, once you take that godliness out of the picture, then you're living all alone and you're seeing life without a spiritual eye. So he is telling us, he is advising us to train your eyes. How do you do that? And he gives an example. He says, imagine that you are standing and there's this huge mountain in a distance. It's huge. You can't even imagine climbing that mountain. Okay, you're going skiing, there's this huge mountain up there. You're going up with the gondola. It's like, who is going to ski that mountain? And then you take a quarter and you put it in front of your eye. And what happens? You obscure that huge mountain from a little quarter. Now, would anybody think that this little quarter is bigger than the mountain? How does a little quarter knock out a mountain? That's amazing. How's that possible? Because he explains that sometimes in life you have something great in front of you, but your vision, your spiritual vision is obstructed, and you don't see the greatness. You don't see the person who's so great that you're living with. You don't see the situation. You don't see the blessing. And instead of seeing the beautiful big mountain that's in front of you, you think to yourself, this quarter is huge. And the quarter becomes an obstacle and doesn't allow me to see the goodness and the greatness that is right in front of me. Spiritual vision means that you don't have that quarter blocking your vision. He also goes on to say, and this is pretty incredible, this is very deep, but I'm going to give it over to you. All eyes have 4 colors. What are the colors that are in an eye? White, black. There's red, those are the vessels. And then there's the iris, which is very colorful. Our goal in life, our purpose in life, beyond living with each other, of course, and creating relationships, is to see that there's a hand of God in this world. That's called Malchus, majesty. To know that I don't live alone. I don't go through challenges alone. I was created for a purpose. I'm here for a reason. I need to ask, why am I here? To know that there's a creator who created me, who loves me, who put me on this earth, and that I have something big to accomplish in this world. If not, I wouldn't be here. The day that you were created and born was the day that God said, I believe in you. Hashem says, you are needed here. That's Malchus, that's majesty. How do I arrive to that place of Malchus, of knowing that there's a God? So I arrive through chesed, through doing kindness in this world, through interacting with people in this world, chesed. I arrive with gevura, with strength, making good decisions, knowing right from wrong. And I arrive with tiferes, which means beauty, finding the beauty of people, finding the beauty of my soul, finding the beauty of Jewish holidays, of mitzvos. The eye, the spiritual eye, takes me to Malchus. The pupil is black. That's called Malchus. That's called majesty. That's what contracts and expands. What will take me to find the majesty, why I was created, why I was put here? So the white of the eye is called chesed. That's kindness. The red, the blood vessels, that's called gevura. That's strength. The iris of the eye, which in every person is another color. For some people it's blue, for some it's green, for some it's hazel, for some it's brown. That's called tiferes, that's called beauty. When I can take all these different components that I have been given and use it to find my purpose in this world, I have discovered Malchus, I have discovered majesty, and I have created a spiritual eye. Every part of the body is not just physical, but it's spiritual as well. So he advises us to sometimes close your eyes in order to open your eyes. Close your eyes to other people's lives, because one of the greatest mistakes we make in this world is that we are busy looking at other people's blessings and other people's lives, other people's Instagrams, and other people's pictures that they posted from their Hanukkah vacations, and we're saying, why didn't I go there? Why didn't I have that? Why are their kids so perfect? Why did they get that car? Why not me? And we destroy our life, we destroy our blessing, and we lose our spiritual eye. A spiritual eye means that you see the good. You have an ayin tova, you have a good eye. And that takes a lot of work. So sometimes when we say Shema, we close our eyes. Why? Not to be distracted, yeah, but also because sometimes you see more by not seeing. Sometimes you become more connected by closing your eyes. If you're able to do that, and you take a few moments every day to close your eyes and concentrate and be mindful of all the good that you have, do you know what you're doing? You are creating and training a spiritual eye. So I want to conclude with this. Many times in life, we see people right in front of us, but when we don't have the spiritual eye, they pass us by. Think how many friends, people, relationships we've lost because we've judged. Think how many times we've judged people who are close to us negatively when we didn't have to do that because we didn't see the whole picture and we don't have the spiritual eye. Think how many times we don't see Hashem's hand in our lives because we don't have the spiritual eye. In the summer, I took a trip to Poland, and a few weeks ago I took a trip to Poland with a group of women. The reason we go to Poland is because Poland has not only Auschwitz, Birkenau, and Majdanek, where we go to the concentration camps, but Poland also, believe it or not, has the gravesides of many, many holy tzaddikim, righteous people who came before us, and we davened at their gravesides. In fact, 2 women came specifically to pray and to daven to find their soulmates, their bashert, and they both got engaged after the trip, which is pretty amazing. Baruch Hashem. So one of the places that we go to, before we go to a gravesite, I always give the story of who we're going to so that you can have kavanah, you can have an intention when you go. There's a shul called the Shul of the Ramah, and it's there in Poland. In Ramah, in that shul, behind the shul, it was in Krakow, there are many gravesites of holy people. There is a great rabbi, his name was the Tosfos Yom Tov. In fact, I come from him, my family descends from him, Rav Yom Tov Lipman Heller. He is buried in the back of that shul. But there's also a very tiny little caver, a tiny little graveside. And the story of the tiny little graveside, it's called the grave of Yasala the miser. Yasala, a man named Yasala. And who was Yasala? Yasala was the richest man of the city, the richest. And nobody was wealthy. People were downtrodden. People were starving. People were hungry. Nobody had clothing. But Yasala was very, very wealthy. And Yasala would not give a penny to anybody. People would knock on his door. People would ask. And Yasala was, they called him Yasala the miser. He was stingy. He wouldn't give anything to anybody. The Chevra Kadisha, which means the burial society, heard that Yasala is dying. They come together to Yasala and they say, Yasala, all these years you refused to give us anything. Give us 1,000 rubles, Yasala, and we will bury you. And you will know that you will leave this world and you did something. Yasala said, I'm not giving you more than 50 rubles. 50 rubles? We're not burying you for 50 rubles. That's fine, Yasala said. I've done everything in my life alone. I'll do this alone too. They leave. He says the Shema, and Yasala dies. It's a Sunday night. Sunday night goes, Monday night goes, Tuesday comes, and Yasala's still not buried. And he has a neighbor who feels very sorry for his wife and his kids. Yasala the miser, but still, I mean, you know, he has to be buried. So that night, this neighbor decides he's going to dig a shallow grave in the back of the shul, in the back of the graveyard, where nobody goes, pauper section, and Yasala's going to go there. So sure enough, he buries Yasala where nobody goes. Thursday night comes, and there's a knock at the rabbi's door. Somebody's there. Rabbi, can you help me please for Shabbos? The rabbi says, what do you mean, can I help you for Shabbos? All these years, how did you manage? I don't know, Rabbi, but there was always an envelope at my broken down door that would come Thursday night, and it would be for my Shabbos. I can't buy Shabbos now. My kids are starving. We can't do Shabbos. And the rabbi says, okay, I'll give you some rubles. One after another, there's a knock at the door. Until it's like the entire town comes. And everybody realizes, oh my gosh, Yasala. It's Yasala. Yasala was the one. He was giving everyone tzedakah. He was giving everyone hidden charity, the highest way of giving tzedakah. And the rabbi says to him, I don't understand. How did Yasala give you 5 rubles and you had 20 rubles and you had 30 rubles? What happened? So every poor person thought that maybe they could reach Yasala. They would knock on Yasala's door. Yasala would say, come in. They would sit down. He would take out his notebook. They'd say, Yasala, please help us. How many children do you have? 12 children. You must be starving. You must be starving. You must be freezing. How do you feed 12 children? And then in an instant, he would turn and say, out of my house. I'm not giving you any money. Are you kidding? They say, nothing? Nothing. I'm giving you nothing. What they realized was that Yasala kept a notebook of every single person in the town. Every Thursday night, he would fill the envelopes. He would go to the door. He would slip the envelope under the door, and they had Shabbos. Nobody knew. So he was always made fun of, and the kids would throw rocks at him. They wouldn't give him an aliyah in shul. Nobody would talk to him. When he'd walk by, they all say, ugh, there goes Yasala the miser. And the rabbi, Rav Yom Tov Lipman Heller, gave out a big cry. He said, we all have to do teshuvah. We all have to ask forgiveness of Yasala. It's going to be a fast day. Everybody come to shul, and we're going to have a fast. Everybody came to shul, all the kids who threw the rocks, all the people who spoke lashon hara and gossip, everybody who made fun of him, all the people who passed him by and spit at him. Everybody came to shul, and they gave out a big cry, Yasala, Yasala, forgive us, forgive us. And the rabbi was so filled and racked with pain that he actually fell to the floor in front of the Aron, and his sleep came over him. He had a dream, and in the dream he saw Yasala. They said, Yasala, Yasala, forgive us, because we didn't realize who you are. Yasala answered and said, Rabbi, you don't need to ask me forgiveness. I lived the way I wanted to live because I wanted to give tzedakah the way that Hashem gives tzedakah, anonymously. People aren't aware. People, they don't get it. There's only one thing I'm missing. Well, what can we do for you? There's one thing I'm missing. I'm missing the Thursday nights when I can go to each of those broken down doors and slip a few rubles under the door and make somebody Shabbos. I can't do that here. But don't feel bad for me, because I am surrounded by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, Moshe, and Eliyahu, Navi, Elijah the prophet. We're all here together in Shemayim. Don't feel bad for me. When Rabbi Yom Tov Lipman Heller, the Tosfos Yom Tov, passed away, he asked to be buried in the back of the Krakow cemetery, next to Yasala the miser. And you can still go today, which I did, and you find this little caver, this little graveside that says Yasala the miser. It's made from tin. And next to it you find the great rabbi, and they are buried side by side at the back of the cemetery, because everyone realized too late who this great person was. We don't know who people are. P.S. That happened in the 1550s. 1974, Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach gave a concert. He was at a conference. And at that conference, there were Jews and there were non-Jews. There was a bishop and there was an assistant to the bishop. He sings a song called Yasala the Miser, and he gives the story of Yasala the Miser. You could look it up after the class. It's very beautiful. He tells the whole story in song. He told the story, and the bishop's assistant, Joe, asked if he could take a walk with him. He said, tell the story again, tell the story again. And he told the story again. Let's take a walk, Rabbi. So he took a walk with Joe, the bishop's assistant. And Joe said, Rabbi, I have to tell you something. I lied. My name's not Joe. My name is Yasala. And I want to tell you my story. My mother was in Dachau. She was skin and bones. She was rescued by an American serviceman who told her that he will heal her. He will take care of her. As long as she renounces her Judaism, she can come back to America with him, but she has to be a Catholic. All my life, I was Joe. I was raised like a Catholic. And then, recently, my mother called me and said that she's dying. She needs to talk to me. For 3 days, she told me the real story, and she told me that I'm not Joe. I come from a family that my grandfather was the richest Jew in Krakow, and his name was Yesela, and he had a Zaidi who was Yesela the miser. He studied Torah, and he was a great person, and I never knew it because I was a Catholic. Look at me. I'm an assistant of a bishop. So for 3 days, my mother told me, this is what Shabbos is, and this is what Passover is, this is Pesach, and this is Yom Kippur, and this is how you speak to God, and this is how you pray, and this is how you make a blessing, and this is how you make Shabbos. And then my mother left this world, and I've been in agony every night. I'm screaming out to God, and I'm saying, God, I know I'm Yesela, but I'm also Joe. And what should I do with my father? I don't know what to do anymore. I'm in turmoil. Give me a sign, God. Give me a sign. Where do I go? What do I do? And then I come here, and you sing the song, and you tell the story of Yesela, and you tell me that I'm not Joe, I'm Yesela. So I am going to Israel now. But I'm not telling my father, because my father's going to want to look for me, and I don't want to hurt him. I'm going to Israel. I'm going to discover what it means to be a Jew. One day, I'm going to get married in Jerusalem, and I'm going to tell you, when I get married, I will be by the wall, I will write you a letter, and you will find me. And that was in the year 1974. Wow. Rabbi Carlebach, Shlomo Carlebach, he describes how he went to Israel after that, and he's always keeping a little eye out. Do I see Joe? Do I see Yesela? Not with a cross anymore, across his heart, but now he's a Jew, but I never found him. And in 1979, Shlomo Carlebach was walking to his office, and he got a letter. On the outside of the envelope, it said, from Yesela to Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. And inside he writes, Dear Rabbi Shlomo, it's Yesela. I'm getting married tomorrow, and I'm writing this letter to you from the wall. Thank you for making me realize that I'm not Joe, and I give you a blessing that for the rest of your life, you have the power and you have the ability to wake up your people, to find all the Joes out there and teach them and tell them that they're Yeselas. Today, I wear tzitzis like my Zaidi. I study Torah like my Zaidi. I keep Shabbos like my Zaidi. And I am marrying a girl who I hope is just like my Bubbies. Love, Yesela. That means that we have a spiritual eye, that you're able to see the soul and go beyond the surface. I thank you all so much for listening.